Imagine a long green ribbon of life. This ribbon is surrounded by a vast, dry desert. This was ancient Egypt. The Nile River was the source of all life. Each year it flooded its banks. The flood brought rich, dark soil. This soil allowed crops to grow. It fed the people. The sun beat down from a cloudless sky. It was a powerful force. The desert, with its endless sand, was a place of danger and chaos. Life and death were very close. The Egyptians saw this world and looked for meaning. They created stories to explain everything they saw. These stories were about gods and goddesses. These myths were not just simple tales. They were the foundation of Egyptian society. They explained the rising of the sun. They explained the flooding of the Nile. They explained life, death, and what comes after. The Egyptians believed their world was created by the gods. They also believed it needed to be maintained. This required a delicate balance. This balance was called Mot. Mot was a concept, but it was also a goddess. She wore an ostrich feather on her head. Mot represented truth, justice, harmony, and order. Without Mot, the world would fall back into chaos. Every Egyptian had a role to play in upholding Mot. The pharaoh was the most important person in this task. He was the link between the gods and the people. His job was to make sure that order defeated chaos. He built temples for the gods. He performed rituals to keep the universe running smoothly. Ordinary people also lived by the principles of Mot. They tried to be honest and fair in their daily lives. They believed that after death, their hearts would be weighed against the feather of Mot. If their heart was heavy with bad deeds, it would be devoured. If it was light, they could enter the afterlife. The world of the Egyptians was filled with divine energy. The gods were not distant figures. They were present in the natural world. The sun god Ra sailed across the sky each day in his boat. The sky goddess Nut arched over the earth. The earth god Geb lay beneath her. The gods had families, they had arguments. They felt love and jealousy just like humans. Their stories were dramas that played out on a cosmic scale. These stories helped the Egyptians understand their own lives. They provided comfort and hope. They gave a sense of purpose to a world of great beauty and great challenges. In the beginning, there was nothing but darkness and a watery chaos. The Egyptians called this endless ocean None. It was a formless, silent void. Nothing lived, nothing moved. But within this nothingness, the potential for all life existed. It was waiting for the right moment to emerge. The Egyptians imagined this moment as a great awakening. A consciousness began to stir within the waters of Nun. This was the spirit of the creator god. He was alone, floating in the dark abyss. The idea of creation was about to be born from the very heart of chaos. It was a powerful and hopeful thought. From these chaotic waters, the first piece of dry land rose. It was a small mound, like the hills that appeared after the Nile flood receded. This was the prime Val Hill, known as the Benben. It was the first solid place in the universe. On this hill, the creator god appeared. In the city of Heliopolis, which means city of the sun, this god was called Atum. His name meant the complete one. Atum was the source of everything. He contained both male and female principles within himself. He was the beginning of all beginnings, the ultimate ancestor of gods and humans. Heliopolis became the most important religious center in early Egyptian history. Its priests were powerful thinkers. They developed a detailed story of how the world was created. This story centered on Atum and the family of gods he created. This family was called the Ennead, which is a Greek word for the nine. The priests of Heliopolis taught that their city was built on the site of that first primeval hill. Their main temple was believed to be the spot where Atum first stood. This made Heliopolis the physical and spiritual center of the universe in their eyes. The creation story from Heliopolis gave a clear structure to the universe. It explained how the world went from chaos to order. It established a divine family tree that connected all the major forces of nature. Atum was the father of the gods. His children and grandchildren represented the essential elements of the cosmos. This group of 9 gods became a model for divine families in other parts of Egypt. The story of the Ennead shaped Egyptian religion and culture for thousands of years. It was a story of creation, family, and the eternal struggle to maintain order in the world. The great Ennead of Heliopolis is a family of 9 important gods. They tell the story of creation. At the head of this family is Atum. He is the creator god who emerged from the watery chaos of Nun. Atum created the first divine pair from his own being. He was all alone, so he had to create them by himself. He sneezed or spat, and from this act, his two children were born. These were Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. Atum was the ultimate source, the great he-she who started it all. He represents the very beginning of existence, a single point from which everything else unfolds. The next generation of gods represents the structure of the world we see. Shu and Tefnut became the parents of Geb and Nut. Geb is the god of the earth. He is often shown lying down, representing the land of Egypt. Nut is the goddess of the sky. She is shown as a woman arching over Geb, her body covered in stars. In the beginning, Geb and Nut were locked in a tight embrace. They loved each other very much, but their father, Shu, had to separate them. He is often depicted standing between them, holding his daughter Nut high above the earth. This act created the space where life could exist. From the union of Geb and Nut, the next generation was born. This generation is closer to the human world. It includes two brothers and two sisters. They are Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Osiris became the king of the earth. He was a wise and good ruler. He taught humans how to farm and live in peace. His wife was his sister, Isis. She was a powerful magician and a devoted mother. Set was their brother. He was the god of the desert, storms, and chaos. He was jealous of his brother's power. Their sister Nephthys was Set's wife, but she was also loyal to Isis and Osiris. These 9 gods together formed the Ennead Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Sometimes the sun god Ra is combined with Atum, making him Atum Ra. This connects the creator god with the most powerful force in the Egyptian sky. The Ennead is like a divine drama. It shows how the universe was formed and how it is organized. The relationships between these gods, their loves and their conflicts, explain the forces that shape the world. They were not just abstract concepts. They were characters in a grand story that every Egyptian knew and understood. Their story was the story of the world itself. The first children of Atum were Shu and Tefnut. They were the first divine pair. Their creation was a strange and powerful event. Atum, alone on the primeval hill, produced them from his own essence. One story says he sneezed them out. Shu's name is related to the sound of a sneeze. Another says he spat them out, creating Tefnut. Shu became the god of the air. He was the gentle breeze and the strong wind. He was the emptiness between the earth and the sky. He was the principle of life and breath. Without Shu, nothing could breathe. He was a calm and peaceful force, a god of reason and order. His sister Tefnut was the goddess of moisture. She represented the dew on the grass in the morning. She was the mist that rose from the swamps. She was the refreshing rain that was so rare in Egypt. While Shu was calm, Tefnut had a fiery personality. She was sometimes linked to the sun's burning heat. She could be a gentle life-giver, but she could also be a fierce and destructive force. One myth tells of a time she grew angry and left Egypt. She went south to Nubia, taking all the moisture with her. Egypt became dry and barren. The land suffered terribly without her presence. The story of Tefnut's flight to Nubia is very important. It shows how much the Egyptians depended on balance. When Tefnut left, the world was thrown out of order. The gods missed her terribly. Atum sent her brother Shu to persuade her to come back. Shu was accompanied by the god Thoth, the god of wisdom. They had to use all their skills of diplomacy to calm her anger. They told her how much she was missed in Egypt. They promised her great celebrations if she returned. This story reflects a real fear for the Egyptians, the fear of drought and the disappearance of life-giving water. Eventually, Shu and Thoth succeeded. They convinced Tefnut to return to Egypt. Her return was a moment of great joy. As she traveled north, she brought life back to the land. The plants grew again. The animals rejoiced. The people celebrated her return with festivals. This myth shows the relationship between Shu and Tefnut. He is the calm air. She is the volatile moisture. They need each other to maintain cosmic balance. Together, they represent the essential elements that fill the world. They are the parents of the next stage of creation, the earth and the sky. Their story is a lesson about separation, reconciliation, and the necessity of balance. Section 5. The world takes shape, earth and sky. The children of Shu and Tefnut were Geb and Nut. They represent the next stage of creation, the physical world. Geb was the god of the earth. He was the solid ground beneath people's feet, the source of minerals and plants. In art, he is usually shown lying down, sometimes with green skin, representing the vegetation that grows from it. He is the foundation of the world, the stable platform for life. The Egyptians believed that earthquakes were the sound of Geb laughing. He was a paternal figure, the father of the most famous gods in the Egyptian pantheon. He was the land of Egypt itself. His sister and wife was Nut, the goddess of the sky. She was the vast starry canopy that covered the world. She is almost always shown as a woman arching her body over Geb, with her hands and feet touching the four corners of the earth. Her body is often painted blue and covered with stars. Nut played a crucial role in the daily cycle of the sun. Each evening she swallowed the sun god Ra. He traveled through her body during the night, and each morning she gave birth to him again on the eastern horizon. This myth explained the daily rising and setting of the sun. It was a cycle of death and rebirth that happened every single day. In the beginning, Geb and Nut were inseparable. They were locked in a constant embrace, and no life could exist between them. Their father, Shu, the god of air, had to intervene. He stepped between them and pushed Nut upwards, raising the sky high above the earth. This act was essential for creation. It created the space we live in, allowing the air to circulate and for plants, animals, and humans to exist. In many temple paintings, you can see Shu standing on Geb, holding his daughter Nut high above him. This separation was a painful but necessary moment in the creation of the cosmos. The story of Geb and Nut shows how the Egyptians saw their world. The earth was a stable, masculine presence, while the sky was a protective, feminine presence. The air was the space that separated and connected them. Their union produced the next generation of gods: Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. These four children would bring the divine drama to a new level. Their stories would be about kingship, loyalty, betrayal, and the promise of eternal life. The stage was now set. The world had a sky and an earth, and it was ready for the complex story of gods and mortals to begin. Section 6. The Osiris Myth, a tale of love and betrayal. The story of Osiris is one of the most important myths from ancient Egypt. Osiris was the son of Geb and Nut. He became the first king on earth. He was a kind and wise ruler who taught humanity how to live in an orderly society. He showed them how to farm the land and worship the gods, bringing civilization and Mot to the world. His wife was his devoted sister Isis, a goddess of great magical power. Together, they ruled in a golden age of peace and prosperity. But their happiness was not to last. Their brother Set was watching them with a heart full of jealousy. Set was the god of chaos, the desert, and violence. He hated his brother Osiris and coveted his throne. He devised a treacherous plan to get rid of him. Set secretly measured Osiris's body and then ordered a beautiful chest to be made, decorated with gold and silver, exactly to Osiris's size. He brought this chest to a great banquet and offered it as a prize, announcing that whoever fit perfectly inside the chest could keep it. One by one, the guests tried, but no one fit. Finally, Osiris lay down inside the chest. It was a perfect fit. As soon as Osiris was inside, Set and his co-conspirators slammed the lid shut. They sealed it with lead and threw the chest into the Nile River. Osiris, the good king, was dead. The chest floated down the river and out into the Great Sea. It eventually washed ashore in a foreign land called Byblos. A beautiful tree grew around it, enclosing the coffin within its trunk. Back in Egypt, Isis was heartbroken. She searched tirelessly for her husband's body. Her sister Nephthys, who was Set's wife, left her husband to help Isis in her desperate search. After a long journey, Isis found the tree in Byblos. She used her magic to retrieve the chest and brought it back to Egypt. She hid the body in the marshes of the Nile Delta. But one night, Set was out hunting and discovered the hiding place. In a rage, he cut his brother's body into 14 pieces, then scattered the pieces all over the land of Egypt. He thought he had destroyed Osiris forever, but he underestimated the love and power of Isis. She transformed him into a bird, and with Nephthys' help, flew across Egypt, finding every piece of her husband's body, except the root. She magically reascended Osiris, wrapped him in linen bandages, and brought him back to life, just long enough to conceive a son, Horus. Osiris then became the king of the underworld, the realm of the dead. Section 7. Living the Myths, Rituals, and the Afterlife. The myths of the Ennead were not just stories for entertainment. They were a guide to living and a map for the afterlife. The Egyptians lived these myths every day through their rituals and religious practices. The temples were not just places of worship. They were considered the homes of the gods on earth. Priests performed daily rituals to care for the god's statue. They would wake the statue in the morning, wash it, dress it in fine linen, and offer it food and drink. These actions mirrored the way the gods cared for the universe. By serving the gods, the Egyptians believed they were helping to maintain Ma'at and keep chaos at bay. The story of Osiris had a profound impact on Egyptian beliefs about death and the afterlife. Osiris was the first mummy. Isis's act of wrapping his body in linen bandages became the model for mummification. The Egyptians believed that to enter the afterlife, their bodies had to be preserved, just like Osiris's was. The mummification process was a long and elaborate ritual. It was designed to ensure that the deceased's soul, or Ba, could recognize its body and be reunited with it. The goal was to become an Osiris, to be reborn into a new existence in the underworld. Tombs were not just burial places, they were eternal homes for the deceased. They were decorated with scenes and texts from religious books like the Book of the Dead. These texts were like a guidebook for the afterlife, containing spells and instructions to help the deceased navigate the dangers of the underworld. One of the most important scenes depicted the weighing of the heart ceremony. Here, the deceased's heart was weighed on a scale against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart was light and free of sin, the person was declared true of voice and allowed to enter the paradise known as the Field of Reeds. Festivals were another way the Egyptians lived their myths. Great public celebrations marked important moments in the divine stories. There were festivals celebrating the myth of Osiris, where people would mourn his death and rejoice in his rebirth. These festivals connected the people directly to the gods. They reinforced the core beliefs of the culture and brought the community together. Through these rituals, tombs, and festivals, the Egyptians transformed the divine drama of the Ennead into a personal path to eternity. Their beliefs gave them hope that death was not an end, but a new beginning. Section 8. The enduring legacy of the Nine Gods. The influence of the Ennead of Heliopolis was strongest in the early periods of Egyptian history, known as the Old Kingdom. During this time, the pharaohs built the Great Pyramids. These monuments were seen as stairways to the stars, helping the king's soul join the sun god Ra in his daily journey. The pyramid texts, the oldest religious writings in the world, are filled with references to Atum and the Ennead. However, as Egypt's political landscape changed, so did its religious focus. Other cities and their local gods grew in importance. Thebes, with its powerful god Amun, became the new religious capital during the New Kingdom. Even as other gods rose to prominence, the Ennead never disappeared. The priests of Amun cleverly connected their god to the older creation myth. They declared that Amun was a hidden, mysterious aspect of Ra, creating the composite god Amun-Ra. In this way, the core ideas of the Heliopolitan creation story were preserved and adapted. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Horus became even more popular over time. It was a story of family, loyalty, and the triumph of good over evil that resonated deeply with people from all social classes. It became the central myth of Egyptian funerary beliefs for the rest of ancient Egyptian history. The stories of the Ennead also traveled beyond the borders of Egypt. As Egypt traded and interacted with other cultures in the Mediterranean, its myths went with them. The Greeks and Romans were fascinated by Egyptian religion. They identified the Egyptian gods with their own. Isis, in particular, became an incredibly popular goddess throughout the Roman Empire. Her cult spread from Britain to Afghanistan. She was seen as a universal mother goddess, a protector of sailors, and a bringer of salvation. The story of her love for Osiris and her care for her son Horus touched people everywhere. Today, thousands of years after the temples of Heliopolis fell silent, the Ennead still captures our imagination. These myths offer a powerful window into the ancient Egyptian mind. They teach us about the human need to find order in the universe and meaning in the face of death. The story of Osiris and Isis is a timeless tale of love, loss, and rebirth. The concept of Ma'at, of balance, truth, and harmony, is a message that is still relevant in our modern, often chaotic world. The Ennead reminds us that the great questions about life, death, and the nature of the cosmos have been with us since the dawn of civilization.